Hello and welcome to the Wise Yourself Up podcast. I am your host, Carla McGreevy, and today we're going to talk about dating emotionally unavailable men, my specialty. Oh, everyone, I've had a morning. I sat down to record this podcast at 9:30 and it's now 10:30. Tech is not my strong point. The camera wouldn't connect to the laptop. I also dropped a jar of almond butter that's glass on the cooker and smashed the cooker last night. Why is life so hard? That's how I feel right in this moment. Oh dear. And the joys of teaching the work that I do. So the big focus is this course that launches in a week's time when this comes out, is that I dive deep with you and even talking, obviously reading about it, not even doing the practices. Like I haven't been doing many practices this week, but from creating the material and talking to you all, obviously parts of my inner child are coming up this week. So I'll try and thread through what's coming up for me, and it's interesting, and there's layers that I have not yet been able to contact in the 10 years of this journey of healing, and I suppose I should welcome it. And it is nice to finally being able to connect to it, but it also brings up a lot of sadness. This makes no sense if I don't give context, so let's leave that. It'll make sense soon. Is this a clever ploy to keep you listening? Probably. What is the crack? It is the 22nd of January. I know January's a long month financially after all my gibbering about not saying your skin to everybody's skin. But I do not think it's went that slow. It hasn't been as painful as other years. And other years that I've been in the UK. I was in Bali the past 2 Januaries. And it's not going so bad, so I'm delighted. I actually do enjoy the cold as long as it's like sunny and dry. I'm not a big fan of the wind. I am due to ovulate today on the 22nd of January as I record this from the past. And yeah, so this is me giving ode to Maria Rafferty, the hormone health coach. I had Maria on the podcast in December, so if you haven't listened to those episodes, listen. And in it, she scolded me for not tracking my ovulation and just tracking my period. And I'm someone who didn't track anything until their early 30s, by the way, in terms of menstrual cycle. So I said that I would, but then life didn't work out. I had a bereavement in December and ovulation was the very last thing on my mind. And then when my period came just around New Year, maybe, it must have been. No, I can't remember when my period came. Maybe it was last week. I'd have to look at my calendar and I can't get access to it. And so this month I have put it in my calendar when my period came. I put in my calendar that I'm due to ovulate on day 14 or around that. And so I'm going to try to be really conscious and intentional to see if I notice any signs. And obviously it's going to take like years. It's going to take at least a year to be able to identify the patterns that are unique to me, because we're also unique in how we experience periods, ovulation, our wee signs. For example, with my period, I get a sleepless night and then I'm like, oh, she's coming. And with ovulation, it's not that obvious. It's not that tangible. So we can be really distrusting of those subtle messages from our bodies. Of course, that's so normal. And especially because our life is so loud. And I mean that in the way that so many people are trying for our attention. Our phones are constantly screaming. It's quite intense messaging we get from the external world. So no wonder it feels so hard to tap into the internal world. And it is a journey and a practice, and one that I haven't. So I don't know my subtle messages for ovulation, and I will keep you posted. And I know that we can be really cognitive in wanting definites and proofs. That's what we always want, right? We want to know this is definite ovulation, and to trust that is difficult. We'd rather have an app or a test that an external validated our experience. We love that. I know I love that. And I actually have wee sticks that you pee on. My friend who was using these when she was trying to get pregnant, so she was using these for ovulation. She gave me some so that, for when the day comes that I'm in a relationship and want to have unprotected sex and not get pregnant, then I can use the kits to know when I'm ovulating. Although the thought of risky sex like that gives me anxiety. How are you all doing with the ovulation? Please message me, let me know. Let me know your signs. I would love to know. I would love to know what wee signs you get. Do you know there are women that I work with, women that I know, that can actually feel the egg releasing out of their ovary into the fallopian tube? Isn't that amazing? Speaking of ovulation, the full moon, how gorgeous was she last week in Cancer? Beautiful. The full moon is the mirror to ovulation. I'm sorry for anyone not from the north of Ireland who's like, what's a mirror? A mirror. For the full moon is a mirror, for ovulation. So when we see the full moon, we remember the power of ovulation and the power of releasing. And yeah, so that's really helpful when we want to connect our power and our femininity. And then the new moon, for anyone who's new to this, represents the day of a woman's bleed. It reminds us the power of coming into darkness, because on a new moon there is no light in the sky, there is no light from the moon. And there's a writer, Mystic Mama, writes, the moon is dark and full of potential. And it's only through stopping, resting, darkness, pause, all the things that we don't do, all the things this word tells us not to do, that's where the power comes from. And beautifully, this time next week, on the 28th of January, under new moon skies, the Connect to Self course begins. And I'm sure you all have me sped up by message me and let me know what speed you've sped me up, because I'm so slow. Begins next week under new moon skies to represent the power in pausing. And in this course, the women will regularly pause and self-study and bring more and more of their unconscious into their awareness, which is how we can change the patterns that once served us, which no longer do. Just to remember that if we have patterns of addiction, normally that's to soothe and to nurture, and more than likely you weren't soothed and nurtured as a child by your parents. If you have patterns of really anxious thinking, then that served you to cope with events out of your control at that time, and it gives you a sense of power and that I can help. Also, people who had that role of looking after everybody, they feel that that's their sense of worth and that they must overthink and have that mother role to navigate this world, which is not true. In the course, there'll be live 30-minute sessions. So 3 will be in the morning and 3 will be at night. And these sessions will be a mix of compassionate inquiry, which is the technique of Gabor Mate, of IFS. I keep on saying IVF. IFS, which is internal family systems, breathwork, of course, somatic movement, and yoga practices, somatic practices, to really help you come into the truth that's in your body and bring awareness to the perceptions that your mind creates about your past. And the course is designed to help you identify the core beliefs that are untrue, that were created in you when you first experienced difficult experiences, whether the trauma is big and small. An example of this is when a parent is really highly critical, a child can believe that they are stupid at their core, which is not true. And if that comes up for you, that fear of people believing that you're stupid, healing and connecting to that inner child can really, really help that not be a trigger for you. And because it will only be the trigger when someone calls us something if there's a part of us agrees with it, right? And if someone calls you something that you really know that you're not, it doesn't hurt. And so it's really healing our inner world changes our outer world. The most powerful part of this course, so in this course, what's my job? My job is educator, is to share the education around it and to teach the practices that work to hold the space. And then also in the one-to-ones, then I help you work with the material that was revealed to you. So in a certain practice, a memory may come up, or this feeling may come up and you may want to investigate it. Because whatever comes up is yours. It's revealed to you because it's for you. It's created for you to help you move in the direction that you're meant to in this life. And I hope this isn't too airy-fairy. I like to be tangible in this, so let me know if I'm being too abstract. But yes, the most important part of this course, so I am the educator. I share the information. We have debates and conversations. You offer your critical thinking around that, which is so welcome, because I fought with every teacher and every healer I've ever occurred, because my first reaction was to reject this new information they were providing. And that's also an avoidance tactics, right? If I just disagree that you have to heal your inner child, then I don't have to do it. Very clever. And also within the course, you will be connected to a group of women who you don't know, who are a range of ages, normally between 30 and 50. And you'll meet women younger than you, older than you, and the same age. And there is abundance of wisdom in that field that we create. And it's going to impact you if you take part. It's going to impact me, which it already is. And it's potent, and it shows us, it reminds us the power of connecting with strangers and how connected we all are. Just the way the trees talk to each other with their roots, so are we. Our nervous systems are always talking to each other in ways that our cognition can't grasp. We're only touching the tip of the iceberg with what we know around that, and God knows what's going to be revealed in the next 100 years. I want to share what my job actually is. There's a few questions around what is it you actually do, Carla? What actually happens in your sessions? And some of the most common struggles that I support women working through. I feel like Chandler Bing, what is it you actually do? Oh, and also I want to share my approach to this work, because it's different. My approach is different to other breath workers and somatic therapists, and everybody has their own spin on it, their own offering, their own way of sharing it. And I'll share what way I do it, and you can see whether that's something you like or it's something that you don't like. And I'm not for everybody. Probably the key difference for me in what I offer is that I use humour within the realm of healing. And this is a tricky thing to do, because what commonly happens in sessions is that a person, and I know that I do this still, when a person brings up a traumatic experience, they will laugh, and it can be quite traumatic what they're sharing. And there is a multitude of reasons as to why a person would laugh when sharing something that's dark and difficult for them. And my job is to work with you in understanding what is your reason for laughing, because usually it's a way to disconnect from the experience. It's a part of people pleasing for me. It's for me to make the other person feel comfortable and for it not to seem that bad. And again, that's a way for me to cope. It wasn't that bad, it's grand, and that's a very common thing that we all share, I find, in the work that I do. And it's important to bring awareness to the laughter and to understand why you do it, because when we bring awareness to it, it heals, and you can really connect to the part of you that you're creating distance from. Then on the flip, trauma robs us of playfulness, and it certainly did me, and it certainly does a number of the women that I work with. I'm not saying it does everybody. That's my experience, and a lot of the women who are on the course experience. People with unprocessed trauma struggle to make time for play, for imagination, to do things that doesn't produce anything, to do it for the sake of it, not to improve yourself, not to be the best handstander in the world, not to be anything, just to have the crack, not to improve yourself. That energy of I must always be producing, I must always be doing, is at the core for a lot of people who have experienced trauma, because trauma can lead to a person creating a core belief about themselves that they are inherently bad, they are tainted in some way, that it was their fault, and they can turn on themselves. Oh, the wee Robin is back! And you're going to have to take my word for it, because I'm using my phone now because that's the crack these days with the podcast. Delighted. Now the Robins distracted me in the best way. Unprocessed trauma drives us to produce rather than to have fun. And I'm sorry, I do not want to be on my deathbed being like, oh, look at all I produced and never had any fun. No, 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 no. And that's everybody's choice what way they want to live their lives. Wee Robin's still here. It's back. And this is the favourite part about this course, is because in one-to-ones, it's not really fun. Like, you know, there's not a lot of humour in it because it is a lot deeper and intense because it's one-to-one, right? Whereas in the group environment and in these live sessions, there's definitely playfulness, there's definitely laughter, there's definite crack. And that really helps a person soften. And for me, when I'm in my darkest days and I can laugh, it doesn't dissolve the pain that I'm experiencing. It doesn't get me out of the hole that I'm in, but it gives me hope. And it's almost like some medicine to keep me going until I'm out of the hole, out of the darkness. It's a wee bit weird that I love to make people laugh when I've devoted my life to helping people heal trauma. It's a bit of I don't know if that fits, but here we go. And what I've noticed is when someone laughs, it dissolves tension, it creates connection and relaxation and connects them to hope. It connects me to hope. And I'd love to know what laughter does for you. It's definitely a very Irish way of navigating life. And even on my granny, my granda and my daddy's deathbed, there was laughter. There was laughter right to the end. And even in those most painful days of your life, the days of the wake, the funeral, and the worst part, the days after, there's still laughter, which is, it's insane, isn't it? You know, even when you look at the children of Palestine and that horrific circumstance that should never exist, there's still laughter. And it's not a distraction, right? It's medicine. It's organic. No one's forcing you. Like, I don't think it would work if someone was forcing you to laugh on your worst moments. It has to just come from within you. And with that, laughter and softening is definitely a part of my approach with this work. And it's something that I guarantee in this course you will laugh. All right, let's go through some questions and common struggles that I help women with, and the women that have signed up to the course and the women that I've worked with over the course of 7 years this year. Oh, maybe it's lucky number 7. Number 1, I'm tired of being in relationships with emotionally unavailable people. Who isn't? It's such a common one, isn't it? Well, maybe in my world it is. I could be the patron saint of this struggle. Really could, unfortunately. Wish it wasn't. As hard as it is to hear, what does being with someone who's emotionally unavailable do for you? Now, when I was in a relationship with someone who was emotionally unavailable and the therapist I was working with asked me that, I wanted to punch her in the face. You know, I felt like she was saying, oh, this is your fault, or I couldn't make sense of it. You know, I was so focused on him. I was like, this is nothing to do with me. This is all about him. As Gabor Mate says, it's 100% every time, always about you. And that's another question to sit with when we're in those situations, is what are we believing about ourselves? And when we're in those relationships, what core belief that is untrue about us does that relationship validate? For example, I am unlovable. I am not worthy. I am not enough. Being with someone who's emotionally unavailable will make us believe that that is true about ourselves. That internal core belief that we may be consciously or unconsciously holding is being validated in the external world. And that's the work that we'll be doing within the course, is connecting to that part of you that first experienced someone who was emotionally unavailable. And usually it's memories and experiences from the age of 3 to 7 that really shape this. And it's bringing awareness to that really core, deep belief. It's deep, deep, deep down, right? It takes lots of layers to get to the core belief, right? It's like an onion. Usually the first, what we think is our core belief, is just like a wee Halloween costume, and we have to go underneath it. And we get to the core belief by giving space to your life. The breath is what's going to connect your brain to your body so you can discover all the lost terrain within. And these parts, these younger parts, these inner childhood parts, can be like axons, and they can live deep within the body, and it's locating where these parts live within the body and feeling into that and just giving it space to be felt. Also using different somatic practices to allow those younger parts to be expressed, to let them say the things that they never got to. You may be really surprised at what you hold. I know I was like, what? I thought this at 8 years old. This is crazy. But it comes from something much bigger than us. And it's not until you experience it you can really understand that. I know I couldn't understand it until I lived it. And it's really loving this part, even though we may dislike this part, we may hate that this part feels so vulnerable. We're like, no, I don't want it. Really learning to accept and love the vulnerable parts, the parts that were hurt, the parts that we didn't ask for. So that would come into addiction definitely, really loving the part of you that's addicted. And that really changes our inner landscape, which then changes the outer landscapes and gives us the autonomy to change what we need to change. Another common struggle that I've been working with, and that it's in the group, is death. And in the group there's people working with deaths that happened 20 years ago, 4 months ago. Also the grief that breakups bring, and childhoods, especially people who had to become adults as children. It is so important that we grieve in this world, yet it's so lost. All the external factors tell us not to do it. And it's complex because if we've always coped with pain through doing and distraction, when someone dies, when someone leaves this world, it's more than likely we're going to do the same with what we've always done when we have pain. But what happens in this is then we hold so much pain, so much grief, that over time it taxes the body too much. We forget who we are. A lot of people struggle to connect to joy, and we lose a part of ourselves. And usually, well, what I have noticed, and a lot of research into this, is that people develop anxiety disorders, sleeping disorders, and different health and mental problems can present themselves in years to come. How do we grieve? We create space. And that's what this course offers. It makes you, it doesn't make you, I give you the accountability, right? And there's motivation within the group to attend, and you're going to regularly attend to yourself for 30 minutes 5 times a week for an entire month. That may seem like a lot, but it's not. And your whole lifetime for you to devote 20, 30-minute sessions of self-study to yourself, which will change your life if you do it. It's not a lot, but yet that feels a lot in our world because we're so programmed to study everything but ourselves and to give everything out to everyone around us but ourselves. In grieving, there's really nothing for you to do, which is the hardest thing in the world. Isn't that what Einstein said? And the only skill you really need to implement, well, there's 2 skills here. One of the skills you need to implement is catching when your cognition is getting involved, because healing does not require cognition. The body knows what to do. The brain loves to get involved, but it just needs to learn to relax, to trust the body again. And this is a skill we're all deepening. It's the era of this time, of this evolution, to come back into the feeling, to catch when we're trying to work it all out in our head, and to drop it and come back to the breath and body and let it do its thing. And to really trust that the grief won't overwhelm you, that you are powerful and you can surf this wave. And a lot of us hold that self-doubt from times when we didn't have the skills, the knowledge, the support that you have now. And that'll make a massive difference in how you can meet the grief. The grief will always be there in ways, and it will become bigger waves, because love's always there, right? So grief's always there. And it just comes in waves, and the more intense waves will come and go. But if you never allow the wave to come, because that's an unfortunate thing, that we can stop it, we can distract, we can get locked in our head so we don't feel. The wave of grief will get more powerful, and then it really can overwhelm us in later life. Again, usually it's panic attacks, and insomnia is very much linked to grief, unprocessed grief. And then the second skill when we're meeting grief is to nurture, to mother, to soothe, to comfort, which a lot of us don't know how to do because we didn't receive it. And I have to laugh. This technique comes from Tara Brach. It's called RAIN. And it's how we deal with difficult emotions, okay? So the first step is recognize, second is accept, and then investigate, and then nurture. And so I was practicing this, working with my difficult emotions, and I always forgot N. I would be in my head, going through the steps, and I'd be like, I don't remember what N is. Like, talk about resistance to nurture. Wild. So nurture was a really difficult step for me to learn. And I will share, because it's, I think, the thing that you really struggle with, you become a really good teacher of. And I will share a range of tools that will help you soothe, such as tapping, working with acupuncture points, shaking, all the different ways, a hot bath. And it's unique to you what will really work for you. For me, I love tapping. I was actually tapping before this recording because something came up for me. Tapping is a big one for me to self-regulate and soothe when something comes up for me, like a very young part. The third struggle so these are like the top 3 struggles that I work with, is I have lost my passion. I don't know what I want or where I want to go, and I feel like a rabbit in the headlights. What I've experienced in teaching this past 10 years and with myself is when we've lost that connection to our passions, to where we want to go, it's usually there's an exile part of us that we're not connecting to. And a really common experience in this is a person will tell me a traumatic experience and then say, but it didn't affect me. It didn't matter. An example of this is commonly sexual trauma. They'll tell me, I know, Carla, it should affect me, but it really didn't. And they really believe it, but their external world in their adult life would say different. And I think that we all know that sexual trauma will have an impact on a person, and to the degree of which, of course, will have a spectrum. And again, it can be with, parents hitting them, being really critical because they love their parents. They'd be like, oh, but sure, it wasn't that bad. It was grand. My parents were under a lot of pressure, and they'll try and cognitively make sense of it rather than really connect to that inner child that was hurt at the time. An example I have of this is the daddy one. So I've told this story. I feel like after 10 years, it's a long time of telling this story. I didn't know my dad, met him at 24. But right, so basically when I was 19, my mummy told me, you have a daddy and he lives in San Francisco. And maybe I should give more context for new listeners. Okay, so basically I always had this idea that I had a different dad. I was told someone was my dad. He wasn't. I'm trying to really quicken this up here. And then at 19, my mummy finally told me the truth, that I had a dad who lived in San Francisco. I felt relief, happy days. I'm not mental. And then my egoic self was like, well, fuck him. How dare he not want me? If he doesn't want me, I don't want him. And it doesn't even affect me. How can someone I know even affect me? It's ridiculous. So off I went. And I really, really believed that. And connecting to that part of me that wanted a father is extremely difficult for me still. And it comes up many times. And there's layers to it, right? And we can only meet what we're capable of at that time. And I'm only meeting what I'm capable of at this time. What I've realized is when I meet a person who I fancy or have a connection with, I will fantasize about that person and give them a whole personality. And, because I don't know them, right? So I will make them really funny in my head. But like, he's hilarious. He's really sound, And like, please message me if you do this too, right? So I'm like, head over head and love it. Now, it doesn't happen that often, but when I do have a connection with someone, this definitely happens. I'm head over head in love, and it's nothing. Like, it's not, I haven't even been on like 2 dates with a person. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's insanity. But what I realized is that there's an inner child in me that fantasized about a father that she didn't know, and I'm not cognitively aware of that. That's deep within my unconscious. And that's how it comes out in my adult life. I allow myself to really want someone, and I never allowed myself to want a dad. And that's where you can tell the difference in traumatic energy, because it's really, there's an intensity to it. And there can be a devastation when you have that connection and you've made this whole idea in your head and then nothing happens and you're devastated and it doesn't match the situation. But it's because, in this example, it's because I'm living that younger child who really wanted to meet their dad, and then they experience rejection. And a part of this, so this is how this manifested in me, is then because lots of my inner child were exiled and I was disconnected from. Then I didn't know myself, I trained my wee heart out, didn't feel a feeling, never paused for a breath until I had no patience and I didn't know who I was. And this happened around 28, and this is when I started therapy, because I was like, I can't continue like this. It's a really scary place to be when you don't see a future for yourself and you don't have a connection to a reason to move forward. And through this work, through dealing with my pain, through healing my inner child, I discovered yoga, I changed career, I've moved cities, and I just don't know who I would have become if I didn't have access to this work. And I'm so grateful that I have, because ultimately this began because I had a corporate job with really good health insurance, and 10 years ago they paid £75 a week for a really good therapist for me. Not everybody gets that chance, and I'm so aware of that privilege. And that's why I feel really passionately about sharing this information and trying to help people understand how powerful it can be in their lives, and to encourage people to do the work and to give different means and modalities of access to this too. And so if you're anyone who wants to work or make this more accessible, reach out, let's do it. And to finish with 2 important things that my job is. My job has always been to disrupt. That's the surprise, isn't it? In the drinks industry, I was successful when I had to overtake an area, get my brands in places it wasn't. That's what I was good at. And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm good at. My job is to disrupt, is to disrupt people when they are in perception of the story of what they tell and not feeling the feelings. To disrupt when a person is being so cruel towards themselves, saying that they were stupid, it was their fault, they were so stupid, they shouldn't have done this and they shouldn't have done that, when they don't see how they were just a young, vulnerable person and who were navigating a very messy world. And my favourite part of my job that I am really good at is I see your potential. More than that, I see how powerful you are. I see that you have an infinite of possibilities in front of you. And I love connecting people to that. That is, why would I do this work if there wasn't gold and sparkle and delight, And one of my favourite shares from my studies with Gabor this month is, a lot of people struggle with not being wanted. They were an accident. Some people's parents, tried to abort them. Multiple things can happen as to why a person can believe that they were unwanted and, have that disconnect from their parents. And Gabor Mate talks about, but more importantly, the universe wanted you. No child is by accident. This universe loved you so much. That's why you're here. And I love that. And you'll find, whether you don't have a great relationship with your family, you'll find your people, you'll find your family. I think that's it for today. I hope you're well. There may be, so this is going to the 22nd, I think I'm going to predict, normally there's about 5 spaces left at this stage. So if you want to join us next week, join us. I am so excited because I really need this work at the minute too. And you're always doing the work when you're teaching it. And I learned so much from each woman there and how they meet the material and what gets revealed. And if someone's like, God, how could I be bothered showing up 5 times a week, 30 minutes a week? It's like, sorry if you've never taken psychedelics, but if you've taken psychedelics, it's like, whoa, what's there? It's the curiosity, in my world anyway. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, reach out, send me a message, leave a review, share to your friends. Every little helps. Take care of yourself. And tune in next week, please.